What's going on, Bama fans? We absolutely crushed our June of 2024 like record by over 3,000 likes. We appreciate you guys. On the last video of the month, this one, I want to beat the single video like record. That means we got to get over 400 likes on today's video. So help me out. It really does help us out here on the channel. So go ahead and like today's video, please, and thank you. All right, coming up on today's show, taking a little bit of a break from recruiting talk. We'll pick up on that. I'm sure tomorrow Alabama is probably going to get a commitment later on this afternoon. But on this show today, Ty Simpson actually talked kind of about the 2025 season and, what Ryan Grubb, the new offensive coordinator for Alabama, can bring to the table here in 2025. And also, CBS Sports also had an article just kind of detailing Keon Keeley and his growth and what we might possibly get from him this year. First up, we're going to be talking Ty Simpson. Alabama's quarterback talked to the media while he was at the Manning Passing Academy this past week. Talked a little bit about 2025 and what Ryan Grubb could possibly bring to the fold as the new offensive coordinator this year. This is what he said about the mentality heading in to the 2025 season. He said, we've just got to make sure that we can be consistent, that we can do the little things the right way and be prepared the right way. Coach always says, winners win because that's what winners do. And winners win by doing the little things right and being professional. So going in each day and just making sure that you do everything consistently, whether that's getting workouts in, treatment, film study, that's going to help us win on Saturdays. And that's what I think our biggest message is right now, is just being consistent and doing everything the right way. Now, the line about winners win by doing the right things, by being professional, in my opinion, that just reads off as such a Nick Saban quote. Trusting the process, creating value for yourself, only worrying about what you can do because, winning doesn't automatically make you a winner. That's not what the process is. That's not what the standard is. Being consistent and putting in the right effort to improve really is what defines success. That is what Nick Saban always talked about. And that's what he talked about in terms of the standard as well. It was never about winning championships. It was about acting like a champion at the end of the day. Nick Saban always said, everybody wants to be the beast, but nobody wants to do what the beast does. I don't think the standard of excellence has gone anywhere under this new coaching staff, and I think this team is really embracing that beast mentality of going in, working out, doing the little things that you need to do every single day. And I don't think the standard's gone anywhere under Kalen DeBoer. So let me know, do you guys think, or do you guys believe that Alabama can live up to, quote, the standard in 2025? Let me know what you guys think. Type Y for yes or N for no down at the pinned comment of today's video. All right, Ty Simpson also gave a little bit of an update, I guess you could call it that, on Ryan Grubb and what he expects that Alabama can bring to the table on offense in 2025 compared to what they did in 2024. This is what Ty Simpson said about Ryan Grubb. He said with Coach Grubb coming in, he's going to put his stuff in from being in the NFL, but I also think Jalen and I have different playing abilities, I guess. Jalen and his legs are very unique. Everybody else saw that. The guy is the most freakish athlete I've ever seen. I feel like I'm a good athlete as well. But Jalen does things better than I did, but I also do some things better than Jalen did. So it just depends on what the game is going to be the next week and what they do. But we're going to be true to our identity and give our playmakers the ball, but also understand that we've got a good offensive line up front. So I am very, very excited about what the future holds. I'm going to give my thoughts around this, on this around the corner here in just a second. But you guys can get this Alabama Trucker hat today. It is $5 off just by going to chatsports.com/Bama Trucker. It's getting really hot, getting really sunny out there. It is summertime now. Even got the mesh back on it. So I know people say that, if you wear hats all the time, you're going to go bald, where the mesh hats actually help that. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know if it's a myth, but that's a really nice Alabama Trucker hat that you guys can get there over at chatsports.com/Bama Trucker. $5 off on that. Just go, the link is down in the comment section and the description of today's video. Also put a little clickable link over there in the corner of your screen as well. Now, I think, when it comes to the offensive coordinator in the last 2 years for Alabama, I think Nick Sheridan did kind of get the raw end of the deal and how he was judged as a first-year play caller. There were a ton of inconsistencies from a player perspective when, just being able to judge him fairly. I think there's some things that the players did on the field they were not executing. Whether or not he had the right play call or not doesn't really matter if the players don't go out there and they actually execute the play. The quarterback, the offensive line, the running backs, the wide receivers, all of those position groups were extremely inconsistent for Alabama last year. And, it's kind of sad to say, but I think your tight ends were probably the most consistent group on the offensive side of the ball last year. And if you can't consistently run the football, you can't consistently get the ball to your playmakers through the air. I don't know what anybody really expected Nick Sheridan to do last year. Now, by saying that, I will also say I do think Ryan Grubb is just going to be a natural upgrade at that offensive coordinator spot. But, every position group has also upgraded across the board this year. So I think, Ryan Grubb, he's going to be a solid play caller for Alabama this year. I think, he really knows how Kalen DeBoer really likes to function in the offense, down in, down out, no matter where you're at on the field. I think, Ryan Grubb, as well as upgrading, the players and consistency on the offensive side of the ball. I think all of that is just going to be a recipe for success for Alabama on the offensive side of the ball. Now, I want to hear from you guys down in the comment section. Will Alabama's offense be better in 2025 than it was in 2024? I want to hear from you guys. Type B if you think it'll be better, or type W if you think it'll be worse. Hopefully it won't be worse. All right, next up on today's show, Keon Keeley breakout. I really hope that happens as well. CBS Sports wrote a piece on Keon Keeley and kind of hinted at him getting some notable playing time in 2025. If you remember back to that 2023 signing class, this was one of the best players in the country coming out of high school. He was a 5-star, number 2 player overall, the number 1 edge, number 1 player out of the state of Florida. Came in as an edge rusher, 6'5", 242 pounds. You guys remember that just wild recruiting cycle where, he was a Notre Dame commit for a very, very long time. And then kind of right before signing day, it might have been a week or two right before signing day, he ended up actually flipping from Notre Dame to Alabama. And everybody was, just really, really excited about this, thinking he was going to come in and, first, second year, be a real impact piece for Alabama at that edge rush spot. And that never really ended up happening. He ended up redshirting as a freshman in 2023. And then last year, just sporadically got some playing time, 24 total snaps in 6 games played. Only had 3 tackles as well in 2024. But this offseason, going into this year, really did bulk up. Now at 280 pounds, he's put 40 pounds on since he got on campus here at Alabama, and he's really going to be set up to play, either that bandit position, or I do also think this could be a guy that also kind of slides inside in different kind of sets as well, because we do know how Kane Womack really does love to utilize that defensive line in different ways and just, use guys in their versatility in different ways. You saw last year there were a lot of different looks that Kane Womack really loved to use on the defensive line. This is what CBS Sports said about Keon Keeley going into year 2. This was from a CBS Sports source around Alabama. It said Keon has matured and developed within the defense. He's gained a lot of trust from his teammates as he has improved his execution and production. He has really improved. The older guys in the room have done a great job with him, and he's really taken the attitude of, I am going to take these steps, but he's a guy that can be depended on, be a physical pass rusher. I believe he will take the big step forward. He will play in 2025. Now, looking at this Alabama defensive line room, I know some people are kind of nervous about it. I'm a little bit nervous about it in terms of, Alabama being able to stop the run, especially the quarterback run at the end of the day. But I think your interior is pretty solid. You got Tim Keene in there as a run stopper, James Smith, Jeremiah Beeman inside as well. I think those guys are going to be able to do both run stopping and pass rush from the inside as well. But then Jordan Renaud and LT Overton are going to be your 2 main bandits this year. Keon Keeley, Jordan Renaud, I think those two guys are kind of going to be the guys that kind of go in and out. Maybe Jeremiah Beeman comes off the field. Keon Keeley kind of kicks inside a little bit. Maybe Tim Keenan comes off the field. There's a lot of different things that Alabama can do with Keon Keeley, especially now being at 280 pounds. I think Jordan Renaud and LT Overton kind of around 265, 270, something like that. So he's kind of in that sweet spot where he could play that bandit position and maybe some, pass rushing sets or something like that. But I do also think with his body size right now, I do also think that he can kind of be a depth piece, maybe even a rotation piece on the interior of that defensive line. Overall, just hearing this about Keon Keeley just really does fire me up. Not many players would stick it out like Keon Keeley has here at Alabama. Nick Saban was the coach that really came in and recruited Keon Keeley, and he came here to play for Nick Saban. He ended up going through that coaching transition. Very easily could have went out and hit the transfer portal after Nick Saban ended up retiring like so many other players did. I think there was like a total of 23, 24 players that ended up hitting the transfer portal after Nick Saban retired. But, every time the transfer portal has opened up, we've gone out there and we've done our, possible transfer portal candidates video, and he's been on there every single time because, that's kind of the world we live in college football right now. If a top-ranked recruit comes in and he's not getting playing time in the first year or two, 9 times out of 10, those guys are going to hit the transfer portal. You guys remember Jeremiah Alexander, he was the number 1 edge just the class before in 2022. Well, Alabama moved him to linebacker, and there was, kind of the same exact thing as Keon Keeley where, he was an edge rusher coming out of high school. They wanted to move him to middle linebacker, and it kind of took some years off of his eligibility because they were trying to, change his body size a little bit. Well, he ended up hitting the transfer portal this offseason. He's at Clemson now. So Keon Keeley, Ty Simpson, both of those two guys, I think are really the definition of trusting the process. I think both of those guys are going to be really, really successful at Alabama and possibly even in the NFL. Now, I want to hear from you guys one last time here in the comment section. Do you guys think Keon Keeley will break out here in 2025? Type 1 for yes or 0 for no down in the comment section of today's video.